The final stand after months of resistance. Protesters of the Dakota Access Oil Pipeline leave their encampment, but not without a parting gesture. They set tents and structures ablaze, a ceremonial way of cleansing the site and sending their message.
The world is waking up into seeing what's going on here.
When completed, the pipeline will move thousands of barrels of oil a day. Activists and members of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe say it will contaminate water supplies and destroy sacred land. The Obama administration halted its construction. President Donald Trump pushed it through. Riot police arrested the few demonstrators who refused to get off federal land.
We knew this day was going to come. We knew that they need to remove themselves from this, and it's unfortunate that they put themselves in this situation.
Demonstrators and law enforcers have faced off several times at the site. More than 700 people have been jailed. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers set Wednesday's deadline to clear the camp before the arrival of spring floods.
We want to prevent any environmental or ecological disaster occurring from everything that we see behind us here, washing away in the Missouri River.
The pipeline could be completed as early as next month, but many here remain defiant. They're vowing to move their protests onto private land and take the case to court.
According to a study conducted by an international medical journal, The Lancet, almost 2 Indians die every minute in India due to air pollution. Lancet study has placed Indian cities of Delhi and Patna as the worst affected cities in the world. During winter, hospitals have to deal with a number of patients with breathing and other related problems.
Winter months, along with those smoggy days, they are probably the worst of the lot. And in those days, we do get much higher number of patients coming to us in the OPDs and even in the indoor patients.
Air pollution has never been brought under control effectively. During the cold winters, smog descends over large parts of northern India and makes the situation worse. Pollutants get suspended in the air in the lower part of the atmosphere, making it very dangerous to breathe. Multiplicity of various government ministries and local governments, each having their own set of rules and procedures, have further complicated the problem. $1 million is just spent every year on monitoring pollution. The Indian government has taken a variety of measures to control pollution. However, they have not had the desired results. Health experts warn that if pollution levels are not brought under control, it will become extremely difficult to cope with the increasing number of patients with respiratory problems.
Wonderful Indonesia is the slogan the government uses to attract tourists. But in the rainy season, these beaches in Bali don't look anything like the brochures. And plastic waste doesn't just litter the surface. A research team from Australia and Indonesia found that plastics have become a serious hazard for manta rays. These giant friendly fish are protected in Indonesia. The government has realized that a living manta can generate tourist revenues of around $2 million a year. Where once it was poachers, now waste plastic is their enemy.
I've been counting plastics in manta ray feeding grounds, and so far our pilot study is indicating that we're looking at potentially 40 to 90 pieces of plastic being ingested per hour by the filter feeding animals.
It's an extraordinary experience for tourists swimming with manta rays, but with plastic waste increasingly ending up in the ocean, Indonesia doesn't only risk losing its tourist attractions, but also inflicts permanent damage to its marine life. The researchers found that more than 90% of this plastic waste comes from Indonesia. Due to a lack of public awareness and failing waste management policies, 40% of the country's plastic garbage ends up in rivers and then the ocean. These large pieces of plastic disintegrate into many smaller parts.
These small parts, which we call microplastics, are very dangerous because if these microplastics are eaten by fish and we eat this fish, this is very dangerous for people too.
Crab fishermen are waking up to a new world. Tony Aniello's family has been hauling in Dungeness crab on the California coast for 4 generations.
The life of a crab fisherman is pretty rugged. You have to be a rugged person to get out there and brave the elements and brave all the challenges that develop.
Being a commercial Dungeness crab fisherman is hard enough, but it's about to get a lot harder. Scientists aren't exactly sure how soon or how badly climate change is going to affect commercial fishing, but one thing is certain: the Pacific Ocean is changing rapidly, and the $220 million a year Dungeness crab industry here in the U.S. could be the first to go.
You sure your count's right?
This year has been pretty good for Tony and his son Mark, but they say they're worried about the future.
Climate change is a concern. We don't know exactly how it's going to affect us immediately, but in the long run it could have a devastating effect on us and on the crab hatchery, the way the crabs mate.
People around the world could soon start living longer. A study found in 35 industrial countries, life expectancy should increase by the year 2030. Researchers looked at 2 life points, birth and age 65. The ages help specify when life expectancy is increasing due to improved mother and child health versus improved health in adults. Generally speaking, women have longer average lifespans than men, but this new research suggests that gap could be closing. According to the study, males in all 35 countries have an 85% chance of increased longevity. Women have a 65% chance. The study says of all populations, one in particular will do better than others: women in South Korea. There's a half chance women there will start living past 90 years old by 2030. Researchers predict people in the US, Greece, Japan, Sweden, Macedonia, and Serbia will see the smallest increases in longevity. That can be due to lifestyle choices and a lack of universal health care.
Meat eaters beware, your favorite protein supply is in short supply and getting shorter. Scientists predict by 2050 most humans will have to eat a vegetarian diet. Genetically modified foods might help, but are consumers ready to eat food grown in a lab rather than in a field? An increase in global population, climate change, and threats from new diseases are set to shake up the world's meat industry.
By the year 2056, another 2.5 billion people are coming to dinner. According to UN estimates, the Earth's population will equal 10 billion people. And the question is, what are we going to eat? And for meat loyalists, there is now something called cellular agriculture,
which is faster than a cow.
Meat is grown in a lab instead of inside an animal. It's called clean meat.
Genetically modified foods, are they good for us? Activist groups, politicians and scientists have been debating the safety of the products since their creation. Many groups have suggested that their use is linked to health issues like allergies and cancer. In some cases, cross-pollination can lead to changes in the surrounding environment. Farmers find their herbicides can no longer fight encroaching weeds that have developed a resistance. And animals that previously relied on these crops for food have to move elsewhere, altering the delicate balance in the surrounding ecosystem.
Dolly the sheep was a sensation when she first appeared before the world. A scientific breakthrough, fascinating but also menacing. Dolly was cloned by taking a body cell from sheep A, fusing that cell's DNA with an egg cell with its nucleus removed from sheep B. This fused cell developed into an embryo which was placed in the uterus of a surrogate mother, sheep C. The resulting lamb, in this case Dolly, is a clone of sheep A. These were Dolly's so-called siblings, identical sisters, all cloned from the same sheep. Professor Kevin Sinclair worked with them and knew Dolly.
It was a step change in our understanding of early development, which ultimately led several years later in 2006 to the discovery that you can actually induce somatic cells. These are sort of cells that belong to the body to become embryonic-like cells that has the potential to divide into other cell types.
This was Dolly's greatest legacy, advances in what we call stem cell research. The ultimate, but still elusive goal, is to use cloning technology to create healthy tissues which can be transplanted to heal damaged cells and organs. But back in 1997, Dolly seemed to raise more frightening issues. If we can clone a sheep, many asked, why not a human being? Since then, scientists have cloned more than 20 species, including horses and household pets. But scientists have also recoiled from using these technologies on humans.
I think where we draw the line is if we're going to use genetic manipulations, we have to be extremely careful, and we have to look for severe disease effects to control for. Because with a lot of these things, it's not just the person you're doing a genetic manipulation on or potentially cloning, but it would affect all the generations ahead.
So Dolly's brave new world has not quite turned out as predicted. A sheep created like none before her, but she could not escape her own mortality. She died in 2003, now stuffed in a Scottish museum.
From solar-powered jumpers to electronic skins for robots, Singapore's scientists are spearheading research into what's come to be known as flexible electronics. Melanie Ralph delves into the new world of soft, stretchable and even washable electronics, a sector that many predict is on the verge of a boom.
As thin as skin, this electronic invention measures your heart rate. Unlike other electronic devices, this one is flexible and moves with the person's joint. The aim for students here at the National Technological University in Singapore is to make electronic devices that we already use thinner, lighter and crucially flexible.
How can you make metal stretchable but still conductive? We have a solution on this now. For healthcare monitoring, especially for sensor, you want to let your sensor as close as conformal to your skin. Unfortunately, our skin is kind of stretchable. So that's why you need to come out with this kind of new technology. How to make this kind of sensor conformal, stretchable, and also still function.
The work these students are doing could hold the answer to developing bendy phones and laptops that fit in your pocket. Businesses are realising just how important flexible electronics will become and are ploughing money into research. The market, which includes things like these flexible printable circuits, is projected to grow from around $25 billion this year to one that's worth more than $200 billion in 10 years' time. Printable electronic circuits are already being tested on the packets of medicine. The circuits will inform the user whether it's the right medication and if they're taking it at the right time, helping the elderly manage their prescription dosage. But with the advances comes new challenges, in particular the threat to privacy.
It's going to be in your sweets that you eat, it's going to be in your perfume bottle, it's going to be in your medication. So, it knows more about you than yourself.
But as the appetite of future generations grow, flexible technology could weave its way into our everyday life sooner than we think.
It's a discovery by NASA's Spitzer Space Telescope that is leading many to question whether there is life beyond our solar system. Astronomers have found a record 7 Earth-sized planets orbiting around a dwarf star called the TRAPPIST-1, which is located almost 40 light-years away from our own planet. Researchers say they roughly match the size and mass of Earth and are almost certainly rocky, potentially containing water.
We have, thanks to Spitzer 2, preliminary measurements of the masses for 6 of them. And for one of them, our measurement is precise enough to strongly suggest a water-rich composition, which is very exciting because this is one of the planets in the habitable zone.
NASA and the Belgian-led research team say their discovery adds to growing evidence that the Milky Way may be populated with tens of billions of worlds, not unlike our own. But they say they will study the atmosphere of the planets before determining whether they could support signs of life.
The discovery gives us a hint that finding a second Earth is not just a matter of if, but when.
In this illustration, scientists have compared a basketball to the Sun and the golf ball to TRAPPIST-1. They say TRAPPIST-1's star is much cooler and smaller than the Sun. This suggests that 3 planets in the habitable Goldilocks zone lie closer to it, with very short orbital periods. Meanwhile, the research continues, and it could take up to 10 years to determine if there is indeed life beyond Earth.
Heavy rainfall is causing California to flood, and the flooding has caused landslides and the Oroville Dam to fail. The reason flooding is so bad is because California is being plagued with atmospheric rivers. Atmospheric rivers are long and narrow strips of water vapor moving through the sky. Atmospheric rivers contain 20 times the amount of water that the Mississippi River does, and they can stretch out for thousands of kilometers. They release an inordinate amount of rain, which is why California is in such a state of turmoil.
Furious opposition to President Donald Trump's leadership and policies continues to grow across America. And in the state of California, 1 in 3 now thinks secession may be the only solution. Correspondent Caleb Mopan reports.
California is not turning back, not now, not ever. His truth is marching on.
If we have to, we'll defund. We give tremendous amounts of money to California.
So you're going to defund.
California in many ways is out of control, as you know. Obviously, the voters agree. Otherwise, they wouldn't have voted for me.
Donald Trump and the Golden State are clearly not happy with each other. Californians have been approved to start collecting signatures for a state referendum on CalExit. CalExit is now trending on social media. Inspired by the Scottish independence movement and the Brexit vote across the ocean, Californians are now talking secession.
They're different. We're different from each other. And again, so how can one government do a good job? It doesn't look like it's done it so far of representing everyone. We have our own government. We have an incredibly strong economy. I think equivalent to France. We're like 6th largest economy in the world. Not just in this country, in the whole world. And a lot of people identify Californians as distinct from America.
California is not a poor state by any means. It's got San Francisco, Hollywood, and Silicon Valley, the booming center of computer technology. Many Californians are now asking, why stay connected to the rest of the country, especially when there's such a big difference in terms of culture and values?
We have military, we have agriculture, we have strong exports and imports. We're ready.
I think if we separated, we would be perfectly fine. It's just the rest of the country that would be at worry, I guess.
Ironically, when something big happened, California requested federal money to help with the Oroville Dam crisis. Many Californians we spoke to on the streets just don't think California could function as an independent country. What do you think of CalExit?
I don't think it's a good idea because I think that without California, the U.S. would be a pretty bad place.
I love California, it'd be cool, but I don't think that's the responsible thing to do for the country as a whole at all.
I don't think it's a good idea. I think that when we were talking about California, we're talking about a huge segment.
Here in San Francisco, the local police and sheriffs have announced they're not going to enforce Trump's executive orders or cooperate with his immigration crackdown. So with local government so blatantly defying federal authority, is this a sign of a bigger crisis ahead down the road?
The Trump administration won't uphold protections for transgender students issued under former President Obama. In a joint letter to colleagues Wednesday, the U.S. Departments of Education and Justice said they were withdrawing guidance the Obama administration issued to schools in May 2016. That guidance told schools to treat a student's gender identity as the student's sex under its Title IX obligations. Title IX is a federal law that prohibits discrimination in schools based on sex. Schools must comply with Title IX to get federal funding. So by not allowing transgender students to use the restrooms that match their gender identity, schools risked losing money. That guidance faced numerous legal challenges and was blocked by a federal judge in Texas in August. The nationwide injunction was still in place Wednesday. The Trump administration cites those legal issues as the reason for withdrawing the directive. The letter issued Wednesday said, "This withdrawal of these guidance documents does not leave students without protections from discrimination, bullying, or harassment. All schools must ensure that all students, including LGBT students, are able to learn and thrive in a safe environment." But the Human Rights Campaign said that's not the case. It called the withdrawal of the guidance, quote, "a blind and cruel attack on young children." The U.S. Supreme Court will hear the case of Gavin Grimm, a transgender high school student, next month. Grimm is suing his school board for banning him from using the boys' bathroom. He argues it violates Title IX.
The German government has approved a draft law setting the stage for a mass deportation of asylum seekers from the country.
Today, the federal government has agreed on a draft law aimed at improving the deportation system. The migration policy of the German government has two sides. Those who have prospects of remaining in the country, those who are in need of protection, should be integrated into society. Those asylum seekers whose applications were rejected and therefore were not granted asylum must leave our country.
The German Interior Minister also said Berlin expected a high number of refugees whose asylum requests would be rejected in 2017. He defended the draft law, saying it allowed authorities to handle the deportations in a better and easier way. The announcement provoked a pro-refugee protest at Munich airport. The demonstrators urged the government to abandon its planned deportation of asylum seekers. They particularly voiced concern over the fate of Afghan refugees, who are the second largest group of asylum seekers after Syrians. Around half of applicants from Afghanistan failed to receive refugee status in Germany. Earlier this month, Chancellor Angela Merkel called for the acceleration of repatriation of refugees whose asylum requests have been rejected.
The ESDAP ban is lifted in Turkey. It's being enforced in other parts of the world. The German state of Bavaria has announced plans to ban the full-face veil. Muslim women will not be able to wear it in government workplaces, schools and universities, and also while driving. The Interior State Minister says facial expressions and gestures are an important part of communication.
They may belong to one of the world's most popular religions, but the Sikh community in the United States is relatively small. Facial hair is left untrimmed as a sign of respect to God. The turban worn as a sign of Sikh identity. Gurvinder Singh was the first Sikh to join the New York Police Department. Now there are 160 Sikhs on the force. Last month, at their request, the NYPD decided to allow them to wear a turban in place of the standard police cap, as well as a beard.
We wanted every kid that wants to become a police officer at least have a chance to be a police officer and not sacrifice their faith.
From the Sikh turban to the Muslim hijab, the department has granted religious exemptions to their standard uniform when officers can demonstrate it's not a threat to public safety.
New York is known as a city of immigrants, and increasingly that's reflected in its police department, which is the largest in the United States. About 120 different languages are spoken by its police officers.
The NYPD has actively sought new recruits that represent the demographics of the city, where 37% of residents are foreign-born, even placing recruitment ads in foreign language newspapers. The advantage, it says, is helping to put the communities it serves at ease, a philosophy it continues to embrace as the department seeks to reassure New Yorkers police will continue to protect them regardless of their immigration status.
By having officers from those communities, that actually makes it a lot easier for us to kind of engage the community, showing them that we understand their culture, where they came from, their languages.
This is my language too, Punjabi and Sikh. I am Sikh too, so same community, and I'm very proud of and happy that.
In one of his first executive actions, the president gave the Pentagon until next week to develop a new strategy for defeating ISIS in the Middle East. Such a plan could include more U.S. ground troops on top of the 5,000 already in Iraq. David Martin is traveling with the head of U.S. Central Command as he evaluates what's needed.
With Iraqi forces closing in on what remains of the ISIS self-proclaimed capital of Mosul, the commander of U.S. forces in the Middle East says he won't hesitate to ask for more American ground troops in both Iraq and Syria.
I've always been encouraged that if we need more, we will ask for more.
General Joseph Votel told CBS News additional American troops would be especially useful in Syria, where U.S.-backed fighters are preparing an offensive to retake Raqqa, the other self-proclaimed capital of ISIS.
The forces that we're operating with in Syria are much more indigenous. They're much lighter. They don't have as good a mobility. They don't have as much firepower. So, we have to be prepared to fill in some of those gaps for them, and that may involve, additional fire support capability to help offset some of those gaps that they have. And we take the burden on ourselves to provide that aspect of the fighting.
Well, that sounds like more boots on the ground in Syria.
Perhaps that is what we're doing. We may do that, but right now I haven't made that determination.
Votel said the basic strategy begun by the Obama administration of letting local forces do the fighting will not change. But in Iraq, 450 American advisors are moving forward with Iraqi forces into the city of Mosul. getting closer to the front lines than ever before. General Votel is in Jordan tonight as he makes one last tour of the battlefield before recommending to the Secretary of Defense ways to accelerate the campaign against ISIS. His top field commander already has predicted both Mosul and Raqqa will be liberated within 6 months.
Major breaking news in northern Syria. Turkish-backed rebels say they have retaken the city of Al-Bab from Daesh after weeks of deadly fighting. They say they're now clearing mines from residential neighborhoods. Well, to Pakistan now, where a wave of terrorism is escalating. A bomb blast has again struck the city of Lahore, killing at least 5 people and wounding 15 others. The explosion struck an upscale shopping area of the city. Lahore has seen several deadly bombings in the past week. One of them was a suicide attack targeting police at a protest rally in the center. 13 people died in that blast. The latest attacks bring the number of people killed to more than 130 in less than a month.